Anyway, welcome to this live stream. Please feel free to comment if you're joining in. When you join in, nobody's joined in right now, just started. But we're going to cover a lot of ground today, real quick. This is going to be right over here. There's a little thing telling me how long. We're only 30 seconds in. This is going to be a 30-minute or less video. Not 100% guaranteed, but we're going to shoot for it. So, a few things I want to cover, and you probably can tell they got a bunch of baits right here, right? So, I just want to talk real quick. No, Bass and Bonsai has no sponsorship, but we are technically sponsored just for a brief time. Thanks in biggest part to Charles. If you remember my buddy Charles, you've seen, we've known each other since like way back. We go way back since like the second grade, right? I moved in out in Lee Summit. Long story, but anyway. Charles's buddy, Big A Baits, has decided to give, I think he gave Charles these baits for us to test out. And I think he, I don't personally know the man, but he has messaged me, says he watches the channel. And so Charles, this isn't all of them, but Charles kind of put together a thing for me to, I guess, if I wanted to make a video or to try out before me and Charles actually get out and start fishing together this spring. So I'm going to talk about those. I'm going to talk about the skirts we just picked up from AliExpress. And the main thing I'm going to talk about is this right here. Did I fix this? Did it have anything wrong with it? Stay tuned for that. We're going to talk about the Corrado in a minute. We're going to talk about these real quick, and then I'm going to talk about these soft plastics. Now, you guys know me. I'm a Z-Man. Z-Man Elastic, right? Last a long time. They got some baits, though, that they don't really have swim baits for one. They don't really have swim baits I like. So definitely we'll be using these, but we'll go into that in a minute. I want to talk real quick about these skirts. So I'm going to bring one more thing in here real quick. Okay, here's my main bigger chatterbait box, right? This is my main chatterbait box. These are cameras that either the skirting or whatever, and I'll try to show you, you can kind of see that it's a 1/2 ounce jackhammer that I beat this one. I think this is the very first one I bought, black and blue. I beat this thing up. And so yes, they do last a long time if you don't break them off and lose them. Still sharp. I've never said that a jackhammer isn't a very good bait. What I have said is it is not worth $15. I don't believe any bait is worth 15 bucks. You won't catch me spending any more money like that nowadays, because I've spent some big money on baits like these. 15 bucks. I bought some of the bigger, possibly like a swim bait, the S Wavers, and I had the Gantarel briefly. Some of them baits are just so much money and so easy to lose, right? But so I wanted to try out. That's one of the skirts from AliExpress. It should be. I mean, they're pretty good colors. And I wanted to say, I guess it's up to you guys, because I shared the link in that video where I got these, the unboxing, if you go back and watch it. And so like that one on that jackhammer color, I don't remember the original colors. I think this was just a black and blue. And I don't honestly remember what color this one started out with it on it, but now it's kind of that almost a goldish bottom with a purple top. So there is another color I may order that does have a little bit of purple in it that would be better for like this. But so once you do your jackhammer, technically these didn't wear out. I just got tired of the color. I felt the color was not doing any good for me, so I just cut it off. It was, tied on. So that should be a good color there and there. If you remember, I'd ordered 2 different colors. So those should work. And I'll show you the bait I was trying to imitate. And honestly, these skirts, they're good. But I don't think they're as good as the original skirt that I'm trying to, or that I was trying to find the color of. Because this is Omega Custom Tackle Rapture Jig. And this is their shellcracker color. If you see, that's the main difference. See that? The bottom? I like how it has that. And then it just has that color. So I'll try to show them here. They come very close until you get to this. Like technically, if this one had just a few of those stripes on the bottom of this one, it would actually be a closer match to that. But this is a very good one. Now these may be fine. They may be like right there and perfect, but I probably need to order. That's the last one I have of these, and I've chewed that head up on it. And once I do start flicking them off, sometimes I'll get the black Sharpie and just, get rid of the, if I feel that, the lead showing through or whatever is too much, and I'll black Sharpie the heads. Typically is all I do to a head if I want it dark. So anyway, I want to give a shout out to Omega Custom Tackle. And if you guys don't know, Trey Harple, I don't know how, I'm going to use a word that you guys have probably not heard, because let me put this first. I'm not in cahoots with anybody, right? Associated with any of these guys, like the Big A's, Omega Custom Tackle, Z-Man, none of that stuff. No sponsorship, not in cahoots. Yes, it's a word. Look it up. So anyway, now Trey Harple has he's in cahoots with Omega Custom Tackle in either designing or making or painting some of the custom stuff, and I don't know how involved he is. But he also has a reel, as we're getting ready to talk about these. If you have reels that you need serviced, I would recommend him. And I always get it wrong because it's actually TH, for Trey Harple, reel and tuning is how you can find him on like Facebook, if you don't already know about him. So anyway, but also Omega Custom Tackle, I recommend this one. It's not like a jackhammer. It's not like the Z-Man Originals or Customs, but it's got its own thing. I think if you work it a certain way, it's hard to explain, but this thing kind of has the ability to hunt better than any chatterbait I've ever seen. And so that's why and that color right there, in my opinion anyway, that shellcracker color comes with the gold blade, in the Rapture jig, that thing just is like times when you get that overcast, you know what I mean? When it's just not bluebird skies, it's, could be before, during, or whatever, or immediately after, like a storm through, but it's still real cloudy or something. There's just times when that bait will like go on fire. So anyway, those guys, those cheap skirts from AliExpress, come close. So if you already have some old just black-headed chatterbaits that need some new skirts or green or the ability to paint them, and I'm tempted to try to paint my own heads or repaint more or less instead of just black Sharpie, because I think a lot of the heads I'd actually like a very dark green. Black and blue, I want a black head, but almost any of these other colors, I either want an actual very dark brown or dark green, and I know it's probably just getting nitpicky and I probably don't need it. But as I put up my chatterbaits, I will show you that my jackhammers are here. That's only ones I have. I'm not going to buy any more jackhammers. No more. I'm not spending $15 for chatterbaits. I did pick up, and nobody really makes a copy. The Omega Custom Tackles, they're on their own. And something to do with how they've got that swivel. And if you notice, they've got one little thing there. But anyway, these just have their own action. So I do need to buy... I already have like 4 or 5 of the baits, and this is my favorite color. So I think I need to buy maybe another set of the skirt, because they sell the skirts separately. I'll probably buy another set of skirts and maybe one more of these just so I'll have a backup. And they're not that expensive. They're nowhere near jackhammer prices. They're probably right around the custom prices. Very good baits, so I recommend you guys. If you don't do anything else, go to Omega Custom Tackle and get you this one bait. And it is, I believe, the 3/8 ounce, which is closer to the ½ ounce. Like, they just feel better. Yeah, 3/8 Rapture jig in the shellcracker color. And sometimes it's hard to get it. I think it's not a limited color, but sometimes they do run out of that and it takes more to get in. But definitely get you one of those if you don't buy any more of their baits. Every person in the world needs one of those jigs. So then, on quick note on the AliExpress ones, if you haven't watched the video, I bought these. I'm not 100% sure about, but I'm 100% confident I didn't catch a fish. There wasn't really a chatterbait bite going in whatever 38 degree. I don't even know how cold the water was, but it was freaking cold. It just thawed out. But this kind of a knockoff of a jackhammer from AliExpress. Now I think this is a 3/8, so I'm going to order probably several more, 5 or 6 more. I just got a couple to try them, So I probably ordered just a few more. They're only $2.50 a piece, and they definitely vibrated good, felt good. Very, so far, seem like a good, legit bait. I mean, the only downside I could see is if, say, and this is actually the one I used, and I just tossed it in there and it's dried up. There's some of these will just get rusty quick. You know, there's almost like nothing you could do. You'd almost have to take them out of the water and blow dry them to keep them from rusting. Sometimes that can happen with some of these cheaper baits. And even the Z-Man stuff. The Z-Man, these baits right here, I'll talk about that real quick. These little Z-Man baits, let me let this focus. And I don't take enough care of them. I need to do a little better job of them. But they will start to show rust just from using them. And if you throw them in and you let them set a little too long, wet, it's just, I don't know, I think it's just a little bit cheaper maybe material than what some of the other Z-Man stuff's made out of. These little, this is the 1/8 ounce. Let me hold it still. Let me get one that actually you can make out. Hold still. If you're just joining and you've never seen what I'm talking about here. Those little dudes, they look like a little mini jackhammer, right? They've made these before the jackhammer, I think, was around. They had these, the little 1/8 ounce. These are the micros. See that? See, remember, you want the micro 1/8 ounce. And I run them without any. They come with, you know, a little skirt. I do not like these littler chatterbaits with skirts. I like them with just some sort of soft plastic trailer to help, you know, basically give this fish something to see once this blade attracts them. So I like little craws and other stuff. And I've tried different swim baits and I continue to try it, but I'll be honest and I'll talk about that real quick. I find I'm trying to imitate crawdads with chatterbaits. I swear, and just I've always thought this, that chatterbaits were designed or imitate a crawdad more so than a fish. I know you can put some, you know, and everybody's fished with whatever, but from day one when I started fishing one, I've always bought, you know, like the smallie beavers is what the very first thing I started putting on the back of the things, or similar, you know, creature or craw type things, because I'm trying to imitate a crawdad. I'm fishing it as slow as I can, you know, and I'm not saying you can't burn it and go flying by, but that's kind of just a reaction, you know, you do that with almost any bait made, that burning retrieve. But when I'm trying to, like, I guess, finesse these, I'm trying to imitate a crawdad. I'm trying to get down there because if anybody's ever been underwater, like if you've had a fish tank with crawdads and fish or whatever, or you've watched underwater footage and the sound that crawdads make, like when they, the way they move and they don't move as fast as fish, right? That chatterbait, in my mind, imitates that better than anything. So the minute a fish kind of hears that, and if it sees a craw, you know, something that reminds it of a crawdad, crawfish, it knows it's not going to be as moving as much, so as fast as a regular fish, which in my mind it means that it's more likely to, okay, I'm gonna go get it because it's just a crawdad. It's not gonna be as fast as a fish. I'm not saying that, yeah, they don't, you know, fish you. So here's basically what I'm doing. Let me explain how I do it. If I'm fishing a bigger bait with the skirt, what I'm going to start doing, I've tried it both ways in the last couple years when I was doing the whole jackhammer versus original shootout, and then I started using them. I feel the minute you add a skirt on it, you're looking for a bigger bite, and I think a craw and fishing it slower is trying for a bigger bite. So this year, as I try the cheap and expensive or whatever baits, I'm going to try to run craws on most all of these. Now you may see me take one and take a, you know, regular 1/2 ounce, take the skirt off of it, which I'm going to do with one of these since I've already, where's it at? So I guess what I'm saying is while I've got the skirts off of these, my plan is to then run swim baits like the diesel minnows and stuff they sell, because I think you'd actually be better off with just a swim bait of some sort or a straight tail, like, you know, because Gene Jensen just did his deal on chatterbaits and how to fish them and all that, and I watched that. And he I guess why he kind of used a craw at times or a flat one is because it goes through wood better or something. It still don't go through wood that good. When I'm around wood, I put away the chatterbaits and I start using square bill typically. I mean, they have to, these do not go through wood worth a darn, even with the craw. So you'll see me kind of fishing craw, trying to imitate crawfish or whatever with these, but then you may occasionally see me with running it naked with just some sort of swim bait or fluke type, and I can't remember the actual Z-Man names of their fluke looking baits, but I've got some of those fishing like that. But especially when I get down to these little ones, when I get down to the smaller baits, you'll see me with both, like a little craw or maybe a swim bait more often. But then when I'm starting, if I'm feeling there's a bigger bite going on and I'm fishing my regular half ounce, my regular baits, half ounce and 3/8 ounce, I will more than likely always try to just start imitating a crawfish, because I feel my overall ability to catch fish on a chatterbait has went down over the last couple years. Once I started playing around with trying out jackhammers and trying out some of these different, I was still catching them, but then switching and trying swim bait over the creature bait. So this year I'm going to try to, instead of worrying about what brand I'm using, go for crawdad imitation, and then as I go smaller, could be both. And then when we get down to those real little bitty dudes, it's kind of also both. So I'm kind of broadening my size range on the chatterbaits I'm using, but I'm kind of trying to condense what I'm trying to imitate and how I'm trying to do it. So that's what I was trying to get across to you guys, that to be looking forward to that. It does not matter. Jackhammers, customs, and this is where I have them. These are my Z-Man Originals, jackhammers, cheaper like AliExpress, Omega Custom Tackle, and then these two are my, wait a minute. No, these are my regulars. These are originals just in white or white and chartreuse. So I got 3 boxes of the originals. These are the customs, or the, there's another name. These two here are the ones that are, the ones I recommend, because they're kind of like an in-between. Let me get a good one here. They've got what I feel is a little better hook than the original. It's about as good or as good as the jackhammer, but it's a cheaper bait. It's like $7.99 or $8.99, about half the price of a jackhammer. I feel they're just as good. But we'll find that out too, because I'm not really doing a head-to-head, but I'm gonna get out and I'll fish what I have, and we'll just see what's going on with the chatterbaits and how efficient. And I'm not really going to do a head-to-head, one with try to imitate a fish, one trying to imitate a crawdad, and see which one catches more fish. But you will probably see me, fishing a lot of different ones. And at the end of the season, we'll kind of be able to tell, like, well, which ones did you catch more fish with, or what do you think you caught more fish with, kind of thing. Because I honestly feel that a spinnerbait is a better tool, or an underspin, or just a swimming jig, even if it's just without a underspin or any skirting on it, is a better imitation of a fish than a chatterbait. You have the blade attracts them, but I feel if you got a chatterbait and you got a skirt on it and you've got a swim bait tail, does a bass actually see that as a fish or what? So anyway, dogs are going nuts. Stay tuned for more on that. Let's talk about these baits real quick, and then we're going to talk about the Curado. So Big A Baits, and feel free to look him up. Big A's Baits is on Facebook, and honestly, I think he just had put a thing on there because I was kind of waiting to do just talking about his stuff, because I think he's actually booked up for a while. But feel free to look, go on Facebook, track him down. If you see colors you want, message him and see, when he's going to be able to make them or whatever. And the cool thing about guys like this, I don't know a ton about him, but him and Charles are, I guess, hunting and fishing buddies of some sort. And I think they both, well, I know they're both in the military. I'm not sure if they served together or not. I think they did. It's how they met each other. Anyway, I'm not going into detail on his background, just what baits that I have to go off of right here. So as I'm grabbing this one, this is my favorite color that I've seen him make so far, that Charles, has here. Now, I don't know if Charles is holding out on me or not, but I went, on his Facebook, and there's definitely a few other colors. I'm like, oh, we need to get some of those. But anyway, I'm going to try to hold them still long enough for you guys to see. There's a few different, there's a ton of different colors going on here with this bait, just in the sparkle, but then there's like a kind of a natural greenish, pumpkinish, then with some orange. And it's hard to make it out. I'm just trying to hold them up. Maybe you guys can see the colors. There's a bunch of different colors going on here that I don't know if I've ever seen that. Just a subtle orange on the belly. And you want to rig these up with the belly. Almost any bait, if it's got two different colors on one side than the other, the brightest color should be on the bottom, because typically most of your fish, the brightest color, the belly is either white or it's brighter than the top of them. The very top is usually the darkest. But these look like, that color right there should be money. Now, I haven't fished it. We'll have to find out. But that was a color that struck me as like, I'm trying that. And if it does work, which I'm pretty sure it will, I'm going to try to get that in a lot of different other baits. But then there's definitely some other, of these baits that look very good. I'm just going to hold up. We're not really going to. I'll just hold up. Now he does have, it looks to me anyway, he makes a few different swim bait molds. So yeah, I'll try to hold up these, and we'll talk about the different. So there's some of the different colors, but see the molds? He's got like this with the head, has none of the ribbing. And it's a little bit skinnier, and then he's got more like a true like swing impact fat, like it's a little bit fatter bait. So there definitely seems to be a couple different ones you could get and order, several different colors. And the cool thing about here is I'm almost positive you could message him if you see colors you want and you want to do a mixture, a top and bottom to one. I'm sure you could probably add any two colors together that you'd want, more of a custom type swim bait, TRDs, all that kind of stuff. So of course these should work also, just a regular, like a pink TRD, just a subtle little. So I thought I saw him having I can't remember. I'm not gonna say for sure. I don't know if I've ever seen this color purple. It may be a touch bright. I know myself, now Charles, I'll go fishing with, well, not just Charles, I'll go fishing with a lot of people. They fish a bright color. I'm like, that ain't gonna catch nothing, and then they just start like catching fish. I'm like, how in the world? Typically, I don't have luck with real bright colors, but I'll go fishing. Somebody else will start throwing them, and I'm like, give me one of those, and then I'll start catching fish too. And then I'll go out by myself, and I won't catch any fish. I guess I don't give them enough time, but I'm more of a natural with, kind of highlighted, more intense colors, but not just bright. But man, the pink TRD will change your mind about that. So these colors may also work very well, but the next color that well, these are just I'll try to hold that color up. Look at all the different color sparkles going on in there. So real clear water, I think that should work too. I like these kind of colors because that bait right there should work anywhere. Very dirty, muddy, well, maybe not muddy, but from dirty to the clearest water, that should be a good color. Then of course you get real darker, stained, whatever, low light conditions, a lot of times, yeah, go to bright colors. But this color, I'm interested in trying. I didn't even notice it because not all of them are mixed. But that's just a regular, pretty bright kind of green, not really a chartreuse. But then we also have the ones just like if you guys have seen me use these. So I'm not sure if, now you can just take a Zinkers, cut it in half, and you've got a TRD, that color, because they make like the watermelon and white, which I call baby bass color. So I think I like that. That green might be a little light for some of the water I fish, but you never know. I mean, you just have to try it. But I definitely like that idea with just a subtle little bit of white on the bottom or belly, what I call the belly. And then, but maybe a darker green, or maybe just that, maybe a 3-stage would actually be good too. But anyway, these are kind of remind me of the watermelon and white Zinkers. So I think they should work. And Charles is interested. He thinks that I myself, I've never had luck with the pink swim bait. It could just be me, but we got blues. And you guys know the deal. If you're putting that on a chatterbait, run it either upside down or just cut. And when you hear people talk, what do you cut off? Just that part right there. So you do it two ways. You could just take a knife or scissors and go here, chop that straight off, or you could go this way, cut here, and then cut here. And when you do that, it does tend to leave a little more of a thing that sometimes will let it move even just a little more. But it doesn't really matter. You just want to cut these big flappy things off if you're running it the right way, because it tends to just get back there and just kind of like an airplane. It just kind of does this and doesn't really do its swimming what it's supposed to do. So like on a solid like this color, it is just a solid through with some sparkle in it. You could just run it upside down. Would probably be the best way, and it would still be back there kicking. The minute you add, and I don't think he's got any here in here that do have a belly to them. Let me try to look. No, these. No, so nothing really with a true belly on it. Anyway, yeah. Let's look. You got. And this is nowhere near all colors or all types of stuff. This is just a little thing Charles threw together in case I wanted to try any or make a video on it before we got out fishing. So just a stick bait. I'd call that blue with blue flake. And then I'm not going to go into big detail, but see all these little baits you can make also. So, go to the thing, Big A Baits on Facebook, and just look. He's got a lot of different, videos showing them, pictures, that kind of stuff. These look very interesting too, And I guarantee you my buddy Jimmy from Raw Fishing that I'm not in cahoots with, he'd probably think these are interesting too. That would probably be good. I'd make that the belly. Rig that thing up. I guess you could just rig it up sideways too. They don't like it coming this way. Turn around, throw it the other way. See if they like it that way. Anyway, bunch of different baits. I don't think I've ever thrown anything quite like that. It's like just a little with that little tail that who knows what kind of jumping that'll do. Then you're just regular like hook tail. But a lot of different baits. I don't know how much, when we're gonna get out and be able to try them out or anything. I don't even know where I'm gonna put this. You guys see my tackle boxes. I've got Charles rigged me up 2 of these full, and I'm like, dude, I don't even know where I'm gonna put that. He's like, he joined the club. He goes, I've got some at home. I don't know where they're going either. So anyway, look forward to that as we try them out and see if any of those colors are how good they are. Let's talk about that. Ain't it? That's how close they look like. I grabbed that just through the camera thinking that was the Corrado, and it is not the Corrado. So let's see now. Let's go. We've been almost a half hour. I was going to try to keep this to under a half hour. Eddie's the only one joined in. Well, there's 7 of you, but Eddie's the only one talking. The smaller Z-Man chatterbaits are definitely cheaper components, but leaving a trailer on can cause rust because of the salt in some plastic. Yeah, I know, and that's another thing. Okay, let's talk about that real quick. If you guys 100% know that the bait you're using, plastic won't cause any problems. Like most of your swim baits, well, I can't say that. Most soft plastics won't really cause an issue other than the fact if water is laying in there. But in all honesty, I don't do it. Every time you're done fishing, you should pretty much take any soft plastic that is on a jig or on whatever and get it off out of the way in case it's got salt. And definitely any of the Z-Man stuff tends to not go well in a box or on the bait. But the Z-Man stuff, these little ones are, and it's, I think partially it's just because you leave something in there wet and it just the moisture kind of is all around in the box, but it'll rust up in here and everywhere else. So I haven't fished this one or anything, and I'm pretty sure, well, these don't have any salt in them. But yeah, it's a good idea, as you can tell. None of these other ones. But I'll get out. I'll admit, as I start fishing, as the season goes, I start looking at my box, and I'll realize that I've left every freaking soft plastic still on all my baits, and I have some rust issues and this and that. Because usually you won't have any rust issues as long as you're taking care of your stuff. Yeah, Curtis says happens to me with Keytex all the time. Yeah, I wish they would come up with a way for their baits to just last. Because honestly, if Keytex lasted like the Z-Man bait, that'd be the only two companies you would need. I'd use Z-Man for their zinkers basically and their regular worms, and then I'd use Keytech for their swim baits and their crazy flappers or their crawls or whatever. I mean, you'd almost be covered. Problem with Keytech, they are fish catching machines. They are only good for one or two hits, really. Like honestly, I've had Keytechs, I've had dinks, I've had a little, you could tell it was a quarter pounder with cheese or less. Hit that bait, I may catch it, I may not, and that Keytech is done. It's gone. Doop, goes flying off, and you're like, oh my god, that is ridiculous. So I've kind of just weeded out. Like, I can't say if I was a tournament fisherman that maybe I would stick with them and have, invest all that money in. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to find alternatives, and there's several other baits out there that do last longer. I haven't had bad luck with any of the Strike King, even the Guggen, different swim baits. These Meredith baits I've tried, they all seem to last, honestly, longer than Keytex, and they're way cheaper. The Meredith baits that I need to make another order of those. Yeah, go through Keytex without even catching fish. Yeah, I'll be honest, I've done that too. I've like you fill something, a rock or something, or wood, and I've done different things where I feel they are very limited lifespan. All right, let's go from baits to reels and talk real quick about this Corrado. I just did a shootout. If you didn't watch it, because I think just for the fact that these are only two BFS reels you can get in the States without being considered, going to the Chinese domestic market, the Japanese domestic market, CDM, JDM, even KDM, Korean or whatever. So I don't know. After that video and then comparing these and with the issues I've had with this, I can still say this is my preferred reel. I wish it was $70. This reel, for honestly how the performance of it's not far from this reel. And I'm beginning to think that some of these plastic reels, when it comes to BFS fishing, are going to last just as long as any of these reels. Because you're not torquing them, you're not putting as much force, because you should have your drag set to, like, even at the most 10-pound test, but a lot of you guys will be at 6, 4, or so you're not going to have a very tight drag. You're not going to be putting a ton of pressure on any of this system, the bearings, the gears, what a lot of guys, and the big complaint is with plastic reels, and they've had them for, been making them for years, not just, JDM makes plastic reels, is when you start, like, you're putting torque, say pretty much anything over 10-pound test, you might be torquing that to where it's flexing the plastic. Even on, some guys don't like the plastic side plates. They like this to be metal and this to be metal. This side doesn't really matter as much. But I'm telling you guys, with these plastic reels, I don't think it matters when you're doing BFS fishing. Even me, typically running 10-pound on a lot of stuff, I don't run very tight drags. You'll hear me all the time, oh, that drag's too loose. But I always catch that fish. So it's like, that's fine. Who cares? You like that clicking, right? But sometimes it is a little too loose. But having said all that, I don't think that the plastic has been getting better. They call it graphite, whatever, and they've mixed up graphite into the plastic molding stuff. And the plastics are just a better quality. Even if they're graphite or what, I still call them plastics. Anytime you're basically melting something, pouring it into a mold, you know, a plasticky graphite, Zion, CI4, whatever name you get for it, you know, a lot of us still call them plastic reels, right? They're not metal. I think that we've gotten to the point now for BFS that it's the point is not that big a deal that, oh, I need aluminum reel, it's going to last longer. The gearing itself, what the aluminum or brass or whatever the parts are made out of may come into issue there, you know, the gear mesh. But this reel right here, I'll just use it since it looks just like the Corrado, not even comparing it to the Cast King, because I think the Cast King tolerances, well, we will compare that real quick. Now you might hear that little geary sound. I'll be honest, this reel probably needs a little more oil now because I got it from Charles and then I had it apart and I probably ended up actually wiping grease off just by handling all the different stuff, and I didn't re-grease it when I like put it back together because I don't run a ton of grease. So it might need a little more grease. But I mean, it's smooth and it feels good. But I don't have any issues with, like, hear that one? Now you're hearing because I've got line and all that on it. This reel right here, the Dark Wolf Ultra. See how free it is? Now I did take it apart and I put bearing, but it was capable and able. I could put a bearing here and here on that worm, on the worm gear, right? I put a bearing here and I put one here. Did you see how free that is? And it just feels good. Feels good, feels free. Now I haven't fished it a ton. So we're gonna have to see after, you know, get some time on it. But this reel feels very nice. The Cast King Zephyr, I never thought like, oh, I feel resistance. It feels bad. I've never had that feeling. It has always felt good. That noise you're hearing right there reminds me of the way the lingle sounded new, and I put oil on it, and then it was fine. Which is because I used the gears out of that. You can hear it just a touch, but sometimes that's just your gear mesh. So this reel, well, you can kind of maybe hear that gear too. But anyway, it feels good, feels smooth. I've done a ton of work to this thing, and watch this. I don't know if you can make out. It just has more. There's more resistance in there. See that? And I know you're thinking, oh, well, you got this too tight, Charlie. No. I want to show you. We'll just crank that baby out. It's even got some slop. See how free that is? You see that? You just see how it hesitates? Even this reel isn't the greatest, but it's a freer reel. This reel is crazy insane free. This reel smokes them all that are on the table right now. Now you're hearing this stupid bearing in that chameleon spool. So somebody commented to me like, oh, well, you need to get the worm bearings for it, you know, the bearings that go on the worm gear for it, because then it's like the Steez or whatever, it makes it like butter. I'm like, dude, I don't think I need them. Like, this reel is crazy smooth. No, like, resistance is just not there. See how quick that falls? It's just like, so it feels very good, even though it's kind of noisy with that spool and bearing in there. But this thing, look at that. And it's actually better. I can feel less resistance now. It's better than it was when I first got it. And I'll show you what I've done. And I don't recommend doing it because I'll probably end up putting the stuff back on as the reel wears in. But there's two flaws I find with this reel. And I'm still not 100% sure if it's the fact that it came from the Chinese domestic market, I got it from AliExpress, or the fact that it was made in Malaysia. Because you'll hear a lot of guys, oh, that doesn't matter. But I'm telling you right now, I think that matters too. Maybe not a ton, but it makes a difference. And some guys can say they can feel the difference in reels coming from wherever. There's just not as much attention to detail put in, right? So I know for 100% fact there's not as much attention to detail put into that reel being put together, and I don't think the parts they use, because I've had some issues with this reel. Now I still like it. Feels very good right now. Even with that little bit of resistance I feel, it is a very smooth gears, all that feels good. So let's jump into what issues I had with this reel. So right off the bat, I went ahead and I was like, I'll take it apart. So I took this reel apart, and I was going to make a video and all that, but I'm like, nah. So here's what happened. And I knew that it had a plastic gear, right? Or plastic bushing up here, like they all do. So this is supposed to have 7 plus 1 is what this reel says on the box. So I knew that that would be a bushing. I was hoping I'd be able to change it like I did on the Black Knight 2 and the Dark Wolf Ultra. But unfortunately, it's just like the lingo. When you take this apart, there's a place to, there's that white bushing is up by the gear side. But over here, it's that tube actually has a piece made on that the side of the worm gear slides through. So there's no way, unless you would try to cut and finagle, to get a bearing on that side. Or maybe there's aftermarket piece you can buy, or a piece from them if you wanted a bearing there. So I put the bearing here, okay, and that's the only really upgrade I could do to try to add to make this thing smoother, because it already has 2 here, 2 on this gear, and then one in here, and then just the roller bearing here. There is no bearing underneath this drag star like a lot of your higher end reels have. But if you add a bearing there, you're only actually adding, you're not going to make it any freer by adding a bearing there. You're going to make it more durable and less likely to flex and potentially wear out the, if you remember right, the anti-reverse gear wore out in my PW100 because it didn't have a bearing right there. I think it's one of the reasons why that prematurely wore out. So technically I could order one. I think it looks like there's room I could fit a bearing there, maybe, but it does not come with the bearing there. That still shouldn't make it bind up, right? So what I did notice, this thing was horribly put together and greased and oiled. So this front nose piece, right? There was a screw here. It's supposed to have a screw there. I didn't have a little screw there, so I didn't put one back in it, because technically it's okay. But I'm almost positive there's supposed to be, every nose piece I've ever seen either clips on both sides or has a screw on both sides to hold it on. This thing only has one, and it's right there, and it is made different. So this nose piece is not the same. This one's like right here, kind of narrow, and this one goes back, or narrow but real long, and it looks like there's definitely a spot and a hole that you should be able to put a screw. That screw was missing. When I took off this side plate, everywhere you could think of that there was a bearing, there was grease. It looked like they tried to grease the bearings. And if, for those of you that don't know, you never grease a bearing. You can oil a bearing on a reel, but you never grease a bearing. It's going to drag it down. Yes, the long term of just packing grease in there, this thing would probably last forever. But as far as resistance, smoothness, or it just definitely, you don't grease bearings. You oil bearings, you grease bushings, and grease gears, right? You know, reel maintenance 101. So anyway, that was horribly done. I mean, you would just had to have seen it. Like, I even took out the shaft, you know, so there's 2 screws. I took the shaft out, and there is a bearing under there. Guess what? It was just packed. I mean, caked with grease. It looked like they filled the hole with grease and then pushed the bearing in it. So I didn't take every bearing out and spray it what I did was I wiped off all the grease off everything I could that where the bearings were, and then I just added another drop. I actually used BFS oil in hopes that that would help break up anything that had gotten in there in the, bearings, and it definitely freed it up. So then my next issue, I did all that. I added that bearing. I got it put back together, and it still had like almost like a resistance, almost like a catch. I'm like, well, what? It's like something is not right. So I also discovered that if I took out that, and if you guys see that little brass looking piece right there, that is that little spacer. It goes on there. There's two. This one anyway had two of them, and I think there was just it was a little too tight. Like it was taking out, and I'll try to do it with holding it. It was trying to take out the slop in the worm gear. So I left it out, and so there's just a little touch of slop. But I kind of went and looked through all my other reels. Every reel I have has just a little wiggle. If you get too tight, one thing about, especially when you're using inferior materials, sometimes you get too tight of tolerances, like it just binds stuff up. So anyway, I took that off, and I still had like I could just feel it. It would get over here, and it had like a binding up. Not over here. It'd come all the way over there, and it was fine. It'd get over here, and it had like you could feel it, like something would bind up. Well, what I had to do was I also had to leave off that little bitty spacer that goes in for the worm shaft pawl, or whatever they call the thing in there. So when you take that cap off, this little bitty one is supposed to set in there to help keep that thing pushed in. And I think the tolerances, for whatever reason on mine, it just pushed it in too tight. So this was all bound up, and I actually had to take, and I wouldn't call it I sanded or anything. I just ran that thing back and forth on that side. It like had a burr also. Like there's a bunch of issues going on that had this thing bound up. So I took that off, and I could always slap it right back in, but it made a world of difference. And I was doing all this by just spinning the gear. Like I was out here, I had the shaft, so I had the two gears hooked together, and I was just spinning this. I found when I took it all off, I could just rub my finger like that, and that all spun. And I think one of the biggest issues why all that is an issue is I think Shimano runs that worm gear is plastic, if I'm not mistaken, which is a junk, horrible, bad idea. I don't care what anybody says. That should be aluminum. You can make it out of stainless, you could make it out of titanium or whatever. Titanium would last forever. But just a hardened aluminum or regular aluminum or whatever they make them out of, most of them are made out of, is way better than that stupid plastic idea. See that one? Aluminum. See that one? Aluminum. See that one? I think actually it looks to me like the Lingles have the best ones. That almost looks like a hard anodized, not an anodized aluminum. That looks like hard anodized aluminum, like on RC stuff or other stuff. It looks like a hard anodized aluminum. Anytime, usually just a regular shinier silver aluminum is usually just an aluminum that's not as hard, I think that actually the Zephyr looks like maybe a hard anodized aluminum. The Zephyr needs a cleaning for sure. So anyway, then even like your higher end Shimanos, like there's an Aldebaran, see that? I think that's a hardened aluminum. So anyway, I think due to the fact that that isn't aluminum is still part of the issue with why that just isn't free. And I tried wiping and cleaning that up. So anyway, there was one more issue. In all the packed grease and all the gunk, the anti-reverse roller bearing was also just caked on. And I honestly think it's not a great one. So I think some of that resistance, I think there's two things. I think the gears are fine. I think all the bearings are fine. I think the fact that that is still a plastic worm gear, this thing's metal. Inside there is metal into the but I think that being plastic, And I think just the tolerance that anti-reverse roller bearing has, that it's maybe just a little too tight, is what gives us that. And I mean, this isn't bad. If you felt this, how I got it now anyway, if you felt that, you would think, oh, that feels good. Because it does. It feels good. It feels like, I think I've got it about like what this reel feels like. Of course, that's a $70 reel. Hear that Gary sound? I need to probably put some grease on that. It looked like it had grease, but it must be, I don't know. That sounds gearier than the Zephyr. And it's brand new. Hadn't even been fished yet. It looks like it had grease on it, but I may need to add a little more. But like all these now are pretty close. Let me feel. This reel I feel also has some resistance. No, actually this thing is smoother. This old Alpha's, I can't do the thing because it's got a full handle on it. I'll be honest. Now this, part of the reason why though, this is when you got lower gearing like a 5/8 to 1 or 6 whatever, they'll just turn freer filling. It's close. It feels good. It's just a shame. It's like my Shimano Aldebaran BFS. This Aldebaran even feels better. The 50. Of course it should, but my Aldebaran BFS is one of my least or most resistant reels, and this Corrado is going to be right there with it. It just, there's something still just a touch. Feels very good. There's still something just there. And like I said, I think it's that anti-reverse roller bearing and then the fact that's plastic. It's those two things. So you guys comment, and I'm going to get out of here. I have no idea if you can buy that. Buy one that is metal. I need to look into that because I would like to actually, because I like the reel, I'd like to actually do that. Buy that, and if it's got a capability of getting where you can add the other bearing, I wouldn't mind doing that. But I'm not. I don't know. Depending on how much it would cost. It's already a fairly expensive reel. When you could go buy a Dark Wolf Ultra for $75 and go way down there in the low casting stuff, or you could just get a lingual for $75 for all around, pretty much what that could do, close to it. But you see how some of these, and I'll try to show you, but they're like free, and the line lay seems to be fine. So let me try to. Trying to see if I can move. No, that worm gear barely wiggles. Let me try on a more expensive reel. See if, I don't know if I can get this thing to move or not. I'm not trying to move this. I'm trying to get the. Yeah, the worm gear moves just a little. I didn't realize that Team Wing moves that much. That thing moves pretty good too. But yeah, typically up in here, you don't want it. It's just kind of free floating, and it's just moving line. It's not having any pressure put on it or anything. It's just stacking your line kind of deal. So I'm just kind of checking the. Yeah, that thing moves a lot. So what I may need to do is find a spacer that isn't quite that thick, but that's not going to have anything to do with that. And honestly, as long as it sits and does that and lays the line down, it's good to go. All right, comment if you guys have any questions about any of that stuff. I just want to get out there and let you guys know that it's a personal preference kind of thing. I feel they're both very good, capable for all around BFS. If you just want to get something that is available technically to the United States that should come with some sort of warranty, I order it, like say if something is broke, the handle's totally ripped off. Now I can tell you this though, AliExpress, I've never had an issue with, I've never had them say no, I couldn't send something back. Or I've gotten money back, like this lingual. I sent them the pictures. This, not this one, the other lingle. The spool weighed way heavier than it was supposed to. They gave me the $28 if I chose to buy another spool. That's how much the spool costs. That's the money I asked for back. The oh shoot, other the turquoise fox, the other reel that was this color. I was getting the frame for it. It came in. It was left-handed, right? I was going to send that back there. I had to take it to some location here. I don't know, like a few miles wherever down the road, 5, 10 miles away, whatever, a couple, 3 to 5 miles away, and drop it back off to them, kind of deal, which sucked. It's like just freaking send somebody come, or I should have been able to take it back to my local post office, not like a different location or mail it to a whole nother place or wherever in the States. It's kind of stupid, but still had that ability to do. So I guess some of you guys are still leery about buying something from AliExpress, but AliExpress, and I'm not sure about like if you order from Digitalk or wherever. I'm pretty sure everything has like a so many day. If something's left-handed, right-handed, there's gonna be could be a tad money in shipping charge to get it straightened out. But yeah, there's definitely like running up to Bass Pro Shops, buying something, taking it home, and going, oh, this is junk, and running it right back, kind of thing. But I have no issues with ordering anything from AliExpress. Same way if I were to try to get this off Amazon or order this from Tackle Warehouse or wherever. I have no issues with ordering another Dark Wolf Ultra, and if it were to come in left-handed or had the spool totally like cracked out and needed sent back, I send it back, get another one. I won't have any fear of losing out, getting missing my money kind of deal. So for me, I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown just in general so you'll know. I don't have every one of them out here, but my favorite reel, period, to the end is still this reel right here, the Zillion. It is, as far as I know, the only reel, the cheapest reel anyway, not the only, the cheapest reel you can get with the boost. And if you guys don't know about the boost, it's the deal. The boost, SV boost, that thing. Awesome. But even beyond that, and I think if I'm not mistaken, the Steez Limited, the $600 reel, is it the only one out right at the moment with boost? SV boost, but there's also the Magforce boost. There's this reel in HD, but it's more expensive. And then is the Silver Fox, does it have boost? I can't remember. There's another version. There's basically 3 versions of this reel now. And I'm not for sure. The HD has a boost. I'm not sure if the Silver Fox does, but those are both more expensive. This is $280. So with that spool, and there's tons of other spool options. Palm's a little bit bigger than some of these other reels, but man, this is an awesome working filling reel. The new Zillion 1000. So it's got all these capabilities, and if you can afford it, yeah. I'd pick it because it's 280 and not what 400 or whatever that these other Shimanos are. This new Shimano coming out is going to be crazy priced at I think what 419. The new Aldebaran is insane. You could get this. You could buy Dark Wolf Ultra. You could buy a Chameleon spool for about that price, I think. So, not saying I won't end up with one at some point, but I'll be honest. Right at the moment, the reason I'm not going to get the new Shimano is because it comes with more of a blue frame than the old Aldebaran BFS, and it's got that dial sticking way out on the side, and it's $420. If it was $300 and it came with the same color, even though they changed the shape and changed the dial, I'd already pre-ordered it, but I'm waiting. HP, I offered at one time to send me his and let me try it out. I guess I should still try to take him up on an offer since I know I'm not buying one. But my next reel, well, for sure, I'm still on, there's no being on the fence. Now, one time I had this as my favorite, kind of, like for the ultralight stuff, if you're ultralight only. But actually, if you guys haven't been following along, the Dark Wolf Ultra, just because the palmability is better. It's just got a smoother where you palm it. It just doesn't cast any better. If anything, it casts just slightly less than the BK2, because BK2 has ceramic bearings, the bigger line guide, if you guys don't know that deal. Same reels, other than just a few little subtle changes. But just that little bit of line guide and ceramic bearings, it'll outcast out of the box. This will beat this. You need to spray those bearings out and oil them with BFS oil, and they're very close. You might gain a few inches, probably a foot or so. I mean, they're very close after that. I wish they would actually take this line guide and put on this, update it to that. Or I wish they'd take this reel and just, smooth out the sides. It's hard to make out, but just that little bit of smoothness, and especially in the top, make it for a whole. Charles was the same thing. He's like, "Oh my God, it feels so much different than that black knight tail." Like, I know. So yeah, ultralight fishing. You're going down there, ultralight fishing. This is still my favorite all around. That spool with this reel. This has got to be my favorite AliExpress $75 one. Dark Wolf Ultra. Kind of looks like this reel, right? My favorite AliExpress all-around reel is still the lingual. It's going to be better for heavier, that all-around BFS, or if you're wanting to put it, to the test and actually get up to almost throwing regular size baits and BFS, like it just better all-around BFS reel. And especially if you like something that feels just a little stouter, still palms very good, this is definitely my pick. Out of the box needs no work. I guess I should talk about that real quick. This one's had some work done to it. Out of the box, I'd take the lingo, I'd spray the bearings, I would put BFS oil in them, and you're good to go. It's got all the bearings it needs. There's no way to put one there, but it's got all the other bearings where they need to be. There are no real issues with the reel. The Dark Wolf Ultra, it's just like we've talked about in this video with the Curado. I put those two bearings. It doesn't need them, and it's probably kind of like the Corrado was before. It worked fine, but it definitely I can feel that little bit smoother feel with the two bearings added there. I recommend leave the bearings alone. You can actually leave them on, spray them out with brake clean, and then lube them up with a BFS oil. But if you go back and watching the videos, if you do decide to pull the bearings off to do whatever, or put ceramic bearings like out of the Dark Wolf, then you'll need to do the little trick I did with the, and this is still holding, with the, you take thread and put through there when you put that pin back in to hold it in place. But anyway, the main thing that you have to do with these is the magnet trick. You got to get the 4 millimeter by 0.5 millimeter little magnets, and you got to add 3 on the outside. Not this one, but where it moves. See that? That part that moves up. You got to put 1, 2, 3 magnets. Leave the last one empty. And on the other side, you got to do the same thing. You got to put 3 of those little 4 by 0.5. So circle parts 4 millimeters, and they're only half a millimeter thick. You got to put 3 on that side. So 6 magnets, and it does change the braking dramatically. So there's where you end up with, come on, focus. So you're like a whole number down. If you remember right, we were like 4, almost 4.5, and for how I was fishing. But now I'm like at just 1 notch past 3, and I've still got all the way to 5 to go. So it definitely fixes the brake deal. So it's pretty inexpensive, and I still recommend that. That's good. But then, I guess for just all, I guess when you get out of my favorites, what do I suggest? I don't know. I still think this is a good reel. I'm gonna have to fish a little more before if I can recommend should you buy it. You definitely, I would pick it over the Cast King Zephyr, but I still think that maybe a Dark Wolf Ultra would be a better, definitely if you're going ultralight fishing, this spool's just not quite there for little creeks and streams, little 2 grams or less kind of fishing. Not that you can't throw it if you really, it just takes more effort, and it's just not as easy to do with some of these other options that are out there. So I would pick, I don't even have that. I actually plan on getting rid of that reel at some point. I don't know when. And this reel, if you guys haven't been watching, I just got it in. Oh, I'll talk about that real quick and then I'm gonna get out of here because this video is already over an hour. I believe this is the reel that copies. I think they're trying to copy, and you guys comment if you know. Oh, hang on. What's a? I'm trying to read your deal, but it's got the good budget option for drop shotting. Well, I mean, any of these reels would be okay for that. Now, rod, that the drop shot is just a rod. Like you have to figure out a rod. If you have a favorite spinning rod for drop shotting, you'll need to find something comparable to that in a bait casting rod. But almost any of these reels, because I guess I'm thinking of drop shotting, I'm thinking you're going to be running probably a 16th or an 1/8 ounce weight and then some kind of bait above it. So all these reels will be capable of that kind of thing. Probably more so the Corrado, the Zephyr, the Lingle. If I was rigging up something for drop shotting, I'd probably use my Tula, which I have a Lingle on, and I got 10-pound braid with 120 feet, and I figured that'd be good enough for me. You could run, if you want to go 8-pound braid, you know, I don't know what line you're running on drop shotting, but 8-pound braid to an 8-pound leader, 8-pound braid to a 10-pound leader or whatever, and the Lingle, the Zephyr, or the Curado would hold enough line to do your drop shotting. I definitely think you don't need the expensive, you don't need a zillion, but I don't know. I like a bunch of different reels, but if I had the money, I don't know, like if I bought one reel, to cover all of my fishing, it would probably be a zillion if I had to pick one, because I would get this, multiple spools, and then just start putting it on rods, right? Creek and stream spool, probably just buy a bunch of these because they're cheap. I mean, if I had the money, I guess money was no option. SV Boost would cover most of your stuff other than little creeks and streams, and then you get to a point where I don't know yet. I don't know if there's any advantages to this shallow spool over the SV Boost other than you can probably do what this will do with only half the line, so you'll keep your line retrieve. You know what I'm saying? Like you'll still be able to fish it normally, to where this I could put just 100-foot a line on that 120 foot and go out and be fishing. But then if I really need that 8-to-1 or whatever for the reeling fill, then that's gonna suffer because I don't have as much line on it, is I guess what I'm saying. To where one of these, even the cheaper ones, BFS, you're still up there to where you cast a little bait like a little crank and still have that full speed, whatever speed you had for the reel. All right, guys, I got to get out of here. If you got any questions, yeah, you can't go wrong with the Lingle. The Lingle is a very good reel. I've not had any issue with the reel. Honestly, if I'm sitting here now I don't recommend this. I did this and it looks very cool, but I feel this is an inferior frame, and I don't know why. I don't know if they've sent them, if they've taken the Lingle frames that didn't come out right, or if they're even molded in a different material, or what happens. But I have had the line go through, and I don't know if maybe they painted this and then they had to go through and clean out the sides, is why. I guess we never really look. Let's look. But it seems, I don't know, and it may just be in my head that the Lingle always had a little bit of tolerance issues, but I felt the other ones weren't that bad. Hang on, let me get this thing going here. So I have to say that I would stick with, buy a Lingle. Don't worry about trying to get a turquoise fox and make it look green and all that, because I think if anything, the tolerance, you could have an issue with the spool tolerance in the turquoise fox frame. I've had no issues with the lingual frames. I'm not planning on switching this back because I just think this looks good, and it still isn't really a big issue. It's just it has happened once to me, and it never happened with any of the other stock frames. But so yeah, no issues. The linguals, well, that right there. If you guys remember right, I do not like that compared to, like, I don't like it on the Aldebaran. I don't necessarily like it on this, but I have found that I loved it on these, but I have found I'll accidentally hit that. That thing there moves real easy, which is kind of a good thing. But if you're prone to not double checking where your settings are, you can bump that. And I think that's kind of why Shimano and a lot of companies, they set out to make it, where you can't do that. And one of the ways they do it's by small and a little harder to turn knobs, buttons, knobs, and stuff like that will prevent a lot of that from taking place. And I think that's what they've done. Oh my God. Get out of there. So, as I put this back together, did I get that? I did get that. Hang on. No, it's not under. I'm going to show you guys a real quick trick, and then I'm getting out of here for sure. Because I see a lot of people going, doing a lot of different things and a lot of different ways to go about. They never do that. See what I just did there? I ran all my line up, and then they're like, "Oh my God, look what you just did! You're never going to be able to get that back out." So I guess let me show you a trick that I use, because I used to be the guy that would either put a little piece of tape on them, or there's pull that out, tie it, and then put it in there because I didn't want it to get in there. Once that happens, like, oh my God, how do you get that back out? But for me, especially, it makes it easier because I run a leader. I just pull on, basically, you could push the button, get some of the lines coming up. Let that focus. So you don't want to grab the easiest one that pulls up. Oh, let me do this. I picked one of the hardest reels to do, because it can be hard if these are little bitty ones. So you want to just grab one. And all you want to do is pull away from the front. So see that? So you're just pulling the front out. So then, as you can see, and you can double check yourself, just pull what's remaining out, and you've gotten the top. You didn't like pull out the wrong one. If any you guys haven't tried or done this yet and you don't know what I'm talking about, like, well, what are you talking about here? If you're not careful, you can, and unfortunately, you usually don't find out until you get to the water and you start casting and you realize that the line is like under itself. So what you can also do there, though, say that happens, let me try to figure out. If, say, well, here, I'll try to show you again. So if you just spin this around and you're looking like, oh, you found it, like there's the line. What can happen is you pull this, and this line, while it was in here doing this, it jumped in or under one, could possibly even be two different loops to where it's crossed up, right? So if you spin your around until you find that, and I'm actually going to make it, let me find it. I'll try to make, yeah, see, so it's crossed up. So you're like, oh man, that sucks. Why did that do that? And you got issues. But all you got to do, don't grab that part. Grab, and that's actually not a bad thing if it does that, because at least you didn't get halfway through the spool before you realize what happened. So just do like I did there. You grab and just pick one of those. And you're basically just pulling it to the back. Now I may sit and mess this totally up. What I was trying to do is show you guys something. Why did that get caught up? I don't know why that is sucking in like that. But anyway, here, we're gonna make this happen. So anyway, yeah. Now I pulled real hard the first time, so I shouldn't have done that, but it still came through. I just had to pull. So you see how I did that? So if you run into that issue, because what can happen, it's usually not that what you just saw happen. What can happen is you're like, oh man, my line went in. Oh, and so you grab it, and it actually, and I'm going to try to do this. Here's what happened. Hang on. So let's say it actually did. Why did I keep doing that? Oh my God. So let's say it actually did get in. It got crossed. And so you didn't notice it. See how that's crossed? You need to check that when you start pulling your line out. See how that's crossed up? There's one. It's under one wrap. Now, I'll be honest, you can get out. I've had it happen before. I've managed to make it out and cast that thing. And you've cast like a half-ounce bait. You can cast like, I've had it go 20, 30 feet, and you're like, oh my God, it's stuck. You're like, why didn't that go that far? And next thing you know, you're wrapped up under there. So what do, right? Oh my God, I need to, I'm like, it's a nightmare. It's caught underneath itself, and I'm gonna have to pull the whole. A lot of the guys you want to start grabbing, you pulling the whole line out. Well, all you have to do is actually don't do that. Just stop. Don't lose this. Don't throw that in the water or nothing. Pull your spool out, and then you're gonna need to take both those lines. Let me try to do this sitting down. You need to see that? Pop that out. Trust me, it's happened. So you're going to pop that out, pop that back in. Uh-oh, don't do that. And go. Now that could happen to you at any time. Like you could have realized that after you've already lined up all your eyes on your rod. So see what I did there? Now it's cleared up. So it can happen anytime. You could be out fishing, wondering why it wasn't casting, or you could have, taken the time. You've got this through here. You could put it through all 10 guides on your $high rod, and you tie on the perfect knot. You're like, man, I just tied the perfect knot on that jackhammer, and knot is not going to come loose. And then you're like, oh, my line's crossed up. Just take the spool out, pop that off like I just showed you. So that's why, if you're wondering, because I know some guys is probably in their heads like, why is he just like, he's got all of his reels just reeled up like that and there's nothing holding that line? Because after being around it for a little while, like, it's not an issue. And like I said, I always just get in the habit, if I don't look for the end, I look for just a spot and then I pull it out. Then when I do pull it, I double check and make sure that I didn't. I make sure that, okay, yeah, I'm not crossed up. And then even if I still am, even if I went through all the whole process that I just showed you, and I still somehow missed it, it's not the end of the world. It's not like, oh my God. So just wanted to get that in there for you guys. Oh boy. Love face XYZ girls here. I think you are a bot. I need to, yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. I'm gone.